Hey everybody, welcome to Popcorn Planet. I am Andy Signor, and The Boys Season 2 recently wrapped, giving Amazon Prime numbers that are making Netflix jealous. We're going to talk all about it. We're going to get into some spoilers. We're also going to talk about what to expect in Season 3, and I brought my man Adon here to do it with me. Hey, Don, what's up?
Hey man, it's good to be here.
Good to have you.
Participate.
You have read the comics too, correct? So when we get to the portion about Part 3, Season 3, you can make some speculations of maybe where they haven't head yet, correct?
Yeah, I mean, they make some changes, but I can throw in some speculations.
Cool. All right. Before we get there, before I get into massive spoilers, overall, if you're wondering, you're watching this, yeah, you should get into The Boys. I think it's a great show, and I was really happy to see what they did with some of the characters this round. There was a little bit of dead weight, I think, at times. Some parts, especially in the first half, I thought could have maybe been tighter. But by the end of the series, I was so into it, and they really did give so many of the characters I love stuff to do. I feel like there were arcs and growth, specifically with Carl Urban, Anthony Starr, Homelander, and Billy. They really, I thought, got amazing time to shine, especially by the ending, that I got to give this show high marks. I also feel like the budget really just increased. The world grew even bigger, and it was really fun to see some big action sequences and some big showdowns that really sort of, I think, took the show next level. From a broad standpoint, Don, what were your thoughts of Season 2?
I personally loved it, and you summed it great when you said it expanded the world. You got the background stories of all the other main characters in there, so from there it just allows you the ability to grow. So I love that part about this season.
Yeah, so all right, let's get into spoilers. If you haven't yet watched it, what are you doing here watching a Season 2 review? If you haven't watched it, go check it out, because we are going to get into spoilers now about the show. And then we're going to speculate about what could happen in Season 3. I also found some articles that sort of allude to some stuff. But let's break down. I have an article here we can sort of have up there, sort of shocking moments to help remind us. But my favorite moment, if I'm going to go through even before I go through this list, my favorite moment still is the scene with Homelander and Morph, was it? Or no, what was the name? Doppelganger. The scene where we see Madeline Stillwell come back in, and we're like, what? What's happening? Elizabeth Shue's character in the cabin, and you're like, oh, damn, she's still there? And then she's got her milk for him, which is just another whole, obviously, meme that's been happening. And then they're sort of making out, and then they pull back to reveal that it's Doppelganger. Oh, my God, it was amazing. And then at the end of that episode, Doppelganger's like worried he's going to get murdered. And so he's like, what do I do? And he turns into Homelander. It was such a brilliantly genius, so creepy level. My only complaint, I've alluded to in some of the streams we're talking about, my only complaint is I almost was expecting Homelander to try it and then maybe snap his neck. But I was sort of more frustrated that Homelander wasn't into the idea. It felt like, yeah, duh. Why wouldn't he want to sort of experiment with himself? To me, that was aside. Either way, it still worked. It was such a creepily genius moment. Did you have a favorite moment from the whole show, from Season 2?
Oddly enough, the whale.
Yep.
The whale. When I saw that, and Butcher just goes through the whale, and then you see Huey just sitting there, and you're like, "You're coming?" And he's like, "You know what? I'm good. I'm just gonna stay here." He's like, "You're gonna die." He's like, "Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay." And
there's the whale in question. It's all fake, so
it's all fake.
Yeah.
But it was just really insane, and it reminded me of scenes from the comic, and because it will be just that graphic. And then on top of that, it said so much about the state of being that Huey was in, how Butcher was off the rails, and then everybody was just really just going all over the place. And then of course the Deep just shows up, and you see him trying to caress the whale afterwards.
Yeah. The Deep's plot was interesting because they really went with sort of that Me Too plot line of him, and sort of trying to then justify him through I guess a Scientology cult religion thing is what they were sort of implying with what they called it. I had to know here, the Church of the Collective. The Church of the Collective, is that a big part of the comics?
I want to say yes, because in the comics they did touch on a lot of different things. And I believe Church of the Collective I could be wrong because there's a lot in it. So I did miss some chapters.
Right. And spoiler alert, by the end, it's seemingly not, because they blow up his head at the end, which was a great surprise. And we'll get there.
Yes.
I guess not a huge part of the comics. But anyway, I would say what was interesting. Well, was to finish that plot line of the Deeps. It was interesting. I enjoyed it. They even gave him something to do there, and his sort of him like wanting the fame so bad that he would do anything. And his breakdown at the end, I thought was pretty hilarious, where he's just going off and he gives good bad, blah blah blah. I don't want to say the words. I've been doing everything for you. How dare you? Just so he can get back in, right? Just showing that he hasn't actually grown. There's no growth there, because there was a little part where I was like, oh, this is kind of cheap, but no, it made it even more, I think, just disturbing, like the show does, and real about just sort of some people will just fake a shift just to get back in the graces of everybody else. So I liked that they went there. I would say though, for me though, they didn't give a lot of A Train to do. At the same time, given where we were, like I liked his reveal at the end where he's like, screw that, and the NAZ, here's the information. But to me, I was going to say I was going to ask, what was the weakest link for you this season before we get to the end and speculate. I got to say, I'm losing interest in Huey and Starlight. It's just, I don't know. There were moments of the season where it's like, it just felt like, all right, here they are in the car again. Why? How come no one's found them? Like, what's going on? Like, for a show that has like this fast pace and craziness, like it was going against the realm of possibility for me, where I was getting sort of annoyed. Like, all right, here are more meet cutes between Huey and Starlight. That was the only portion of the series, and they're fine. At the end of the day, it wasn't like, didn't kill the show for me, but I would say for me that was probably the weak point where I'm like, all right, I get it. The Billy Joel references, he's still torn. Like, can we get to this? Did you have any sort of letdowns or any other moments that you were like, meh, of the season, or were you a fan overall?
Actually, I would say Starlight also, because like she grows so much in the comic, and I felt like they forced all her growth in season 1, and she really didn't grow too much here.
Yep.
In setting aside Starlight, because I do agree with you what you said there, Mother's Milk, MM.
Yeah. They don't really give him anything to do.
No, and they hint about what happened with his father, which in the comics there's a big situation that happens with his father because of his mother and Aunt Vought. But the way they're portraying the whole universe right now, I don't know how they're going to truly portray that. And I'm not going to say it just yet. I may save that for what we're talking about for season 3.
Got it. But you're right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mother's Milk didn't get a lot to do, but yeah, overall though, I've seen way worse, right? Like even the worst parts of this were, were still fantastic. But I thought overall, they really gave Billy a lot to do in this. Like I liked the plot with his father. You really got a lot more, and with Becca and the kid and his sort of struggle with literally. I love the scene with him and Giancarlo Esposito, where you realize he's going to totally just give up the kid to have the mom. And I'm the devil or whatever. He's like, and I'm the evil one. But then he obviously has a heart by the end, and it's crushing by the end. But the point is that I feel like they gave him a lot to do, and they did really allow his arc to change, which was nice. And then to me, the star though was still Homelander, and obviously let's talk about getting into why am I forgetting her name? Stormfront. Homelander and Stormfront was the big storyline, I think, of the season, and Stormfront's introduction, and then her secret reveal. To me, Homelander, I felt like really had some interesting turns in this one. Like that, there was that moment where they sort of revealed him going off in the crowd, going super nuts, killing everybody. And there was a part of me like, oh man, they went there. I'm just waiting for that moment to happen. So I love that they're sort of walking on that, edge of, is he just going to go crazy? Is he not? And I even loved the end where they finally used Maeve's tape to sort of really use it against him of like, she's like, I'll murder everybody. And she's like, fine, then at least everyone will know who you are. It was like, to me, I believed it. I was like, that is something that would stop him, because he's like, all right, I can murder everybody, but then the tape's going to get out, and then everyone knows I'm a killer, and then I guess I'm just a killer from now on. I can't have any admiration. So I really do feel like they give him a lot. Plus, I thought there were moments where I thought he genuinely felt for the kid. And I loved that, because he's such a bad guy, right? But I love that there were moments where I felt like he was worried about Ryan, right? The boy, where he was, like, even Stormfront sort of surprised when he sort of flies out to sort of try to protect him. I like when a villain has there are moments of good, right? Where you're like, is there a good person in there? Or is it impossible? So the child sort of plot line, while it started hideous, you're watching him throw the kid off the roof and all this terrible stuff. I felt like there was like still like a moment there as the show progressed that I liked, where you're like, wait a second, is he actually going to try and like, do it? I don't know. Did you feel that way too?
Well, here's the thing. It's very interesting because he has a very narcissistic personality. And that's why they were able to win that over in the end, because of that personality. He wants people to be drawn to him. He wants to get that love from everybody else. Not really himself. He wants everybody else to love him. But when he was getting that from his son, that was filling that void for him. And you're right. It was giving him more of a humanity perspective that we weren't seeing. Very small bits, because it will fade away
Very quickly.
Fast.
Yes.
But okay, like the one part where they're at the cabin and they're trying to show him how to use his laser vision, and then she's talking about it's a war against them and us, and I could see like, and this might be me just interpreting it. It's like I could see Homelander's like kind of questioning.
Yes.
He's like literally like.
He's like, wait a second, I'm a bad guy, but I'm not that bad a guy.
Exactly. But if it gets him there, he's like, I might allow this.
Yeah.
He's
like, I'll hear you.
But he's like, I don't know if I really want this for my son. And then that's the question I want him to ask. But by the end, we're like, oh, that's not a question he's going to be able to ask.
Yes. But you put on, that was another moment where I was like, all right, he's not so, I mean, he is evil. He's an evil narcissist, of course. But there were moments like that. Exactly. I'm glad you brought that up, because that was another one I'm like, yeah, you can tell he's not into this. He's into her, and he's sort of humoring her right now. But you could tell there were moments like, I don't want to raise my kid that way. So that's why I liked that they made him a little bit more complicated, where they could have just, Stormfront became just an obvious villain where there's really no good in her at all. And so it was nice to have Homelander like sort of see a little bit of it, but he's still crushed by the end. I just going through this list, it reminded me like Lamplighter was sort of like a went nowhere type of plot that I thought, it was what it was. But
fun fact, if you don't know it, Lamplighter in the comics was killed off in the main storyline.
Okay, so that was expected.
Yeah, no, he was not a functioning character like in the main story. Like after the whole thing where he kills the kids, they find him and they kill him. Oh,
I see. So they brought him back sort of that small arc. So it makes sense that they killed him off pretty quickly because he wasn't a part. Mm-hmm. Got it. I did love Black Noir's like sort of throwdowns, and I loved that they were watching him through the camera. There was some creepy stuff there, and then I even enjoyed Maeve coming through with like, "Oh, here's the quick way to kill him: tree nuts." It was very Batman-y of like, "Oh, just throw this in his mouth and he's done." So like there were cool segments, but there was that throwdown in the house was pretty great, and I liked that they gave it stakes where it's like there was a reason he wasn't murdering him, and then when they revealed like and then Billy, like, he said out loud, like, I know where I got that. And then the phone rings. Like, I loved those clever moments where you realize the boys are like Batman. Like, the boys can play toe to toe with these huge heroes, because you constantly wonder, like, why aren't they just murdering these guys? But no, Butcher can really get to the heat of it and keep people engaged, which makes the show so much fun. Any other quick moments to mention before we sort of get to I want to get to that ending and talk about the speculation there.
Probably one of my favorite episodes, like as a whole, was the hospital.
Yes.
With
Lamplighter, that was a fun one.
They were experimenting on the bot, and they had a lot of the smaller characters that are in the comics. They're actually in that hospital. Most notably, Love
Sage
Sausage.
Grove, right? Yeah, Love Sausage. Is that what it's called?
That's what it's called. In the comic, he doesn't have that ability, but he does have a very large sausage.
They made it. They definitely took advantage of it. Yeah, no, those are fun. Movie. So and that lady who walks out at the end, who can just with her mind, is that a character that we should be worried about moving forward? I would assume so.
Actually, I'm not gonna assume that she's gonna play a major part, but I don't remember her in the comics. Like the whole head explosion thing, I don't remember that too well in the comics. But they do have a politician in that steps in for Vought, so like a double agent. So I'm suspecting she's playing the female version of that character.
Yes, from what I've read, exactly. Vic or whatever is the name, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's who this is. This new person. I had it up here, but now I've lost it. Yeah. So I had it here in one of my things. But yes, now as we speculate, Vic Newman was the character in the books as I was looking, and now they made it Victoria in this new show. And so now let's get to that reveal. So they reveal that Victoria is the one who's actually decapitating people at the very end. We see her walking outside the Church of the Collective and blows his head up. And then we see Huey working for her, like, oh no, it never ends. but I liked that. I thought, all right, because I liked that they wrapped things up pretty tightly, right? They put a bow on sort of where we stood. Mother's Milk gets reunited. Everything's put away, and so they gave us an ending, which was nice. And then they teased us, oh no, it's not over. There's a whole nother thing. It's even more serious now. Of like, oh, the person they think is good is actually potentially really, really bad. How are they going to figure this out? And now Hugh's right there next to it. I thought it was a brilliant way. That's to me the best kind of a season ender where they give you a satisfying conclusion, right? And then they say, nope, just you wait. Oh, damn, what? And now we got a whole nother place to go. So speculating on that, was the head, that's what I was curious. How much of that ending and that character do you remember from the comics? And then we'll talk about sort of where you think it can go.
To my knowledge, Vic Newman didn't have that ability. He was a double agent for Vought, but he was more like a character that was. He got into politics, but he wasn't really the most intelligent of guys. He was just like the front runner guy, and everybody just like used him in that place. And then eventually, he got usurped when Homelander decided to take over himself. So there's a whole arc that's going to change if that happens. Like, if it's going down that route, then we're probably expecting her to try to run for president.
Right. So, and here's an article I have with Eric, the creator, who's working on it, talking about how this all went down. And they knew that storyline was going to happen with Victoria pretty early on in the beginning. They were playing with that idea, and so apparently it's going to get more. The idea of the Soups getting into politics becomes a bigger deal. So what you just said would make sense. Is there a run where Homelander, or does you said Vic or Homelander, one of them gets into politics?
It would be Victoria, but then there's a point in the comics where Homelander decides the people had their chance. Now it's the Super's chance.
Ooh, interesting.
And, yeah.
Homelander for president is definitely an interesting plot line.
More like Homelander the Conqueror.
Oh, got it. The dictator conqueror. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So things get darker with Homelander. I'm excited. Sorry to spoiler things, but it's like read the comics and you can learn all this yourself. And so, but again, what's interesting about the show, and you can attest, it doesn't always just follow the comics directly, right? There's a lot of directions they go differently. So even if whatever we're speculating here could all be off base.
Well, best example, Homelander's son does not make it in the comics. Homelander's son bursts out of Butcher's wife as an infant, and Butcher beats him with a lamp and kills Homelander's son before he could develop his powers fully. So,
wow.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. Like, so that son does not exist.
Well, and that's such a great thing to have, I think, playing out now, where there's so much. And what's nice is you can hide him away now, which it sounds like they're going to do. Hide him away, and then they can use him when they need to down the line if they're like, you know what, we need something here, because it's a huge card to play, right?
No, it's a fantastic card to play. And if they want to do like a time jump, they don't have to use the same boy. They can use an older kid, like in the teenagers or anything like that. And that could be a secret weapon. Matter of fact, oh my God, now that I think about that, that it could tie into something else that they're going to do that they did in the comics, because I felt like they changed up Black Noir, and my original interpretation of who Black Noir is supposed to be may not be that guy anymore.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, let's not spoil too much, but you can allude to the comic fans who would know. It sounds like you're alluding enough, so comic fans will know what you're talking about. But at the end, they talk about they're going to bring in Soldier Boy as a character that's going to be part of this. Do you know enough about Soldier Boy?
Soldier Boy, I could talk a little bit about him. He was basically supposed to be part of like the original version of Vought's group, like back in World War II, and at least he claims so. In the comics, Butcher said no, he's not, and matter of fact, he does a disservice to the guys he claims to fight along with. And it turns out that there was like other Soldier Boys before him. It's a legacy title. But still, he's a guy who actually believes that he's doing the right thing and does not want to participate in the same activities that a lot of the other main superheroes would do. There was an arc called the Herogasm arc. And he's like, he refused to participate in that.
And then one more bit I've seen here, sort of talking about it. Anthony Starr. He's British, which is when you hear his real accent, you're like, my God, he's even more better actor than I realized. But he said when Eric Kripke told him the storyline for season 3, there were only 2 words: homicidal maniac. That's all I know. But he said, I'm actually looking forward to seeing Homelander off the leash. It'll be really fun just seeing him go unhinged and exact revenge. If you look at the end of season 2, some people should be more scared than others, for sure. William Butcher should always have an alarm bell ringing in his head. And I think some other people have firmly put themselves in the line of fire for season 3. So Homelander as a homicidal maniac, that would play into what you know of the comics and his direction, yes?
Yes.
You're like, yes. I can't wait.
Without question. There's definitely moments in the comics where Homelander is off the rails homicidal. It's without question.
I mean, he's shown moments of that, but I feel like, they could easily go even crazier with it. Stormfront was the one who really was going there this season, but I feel like and Homelander was sort of enjoying it. So if anything, maybe that's where he really got the taste for blood even further.
Well, I mean, they didn't show a lot in the cabin, but that end scene where he's like, "Where's my boy?"
Yeah.
And then they cut back and he walks out and he's covered in blood.
Yeah.
That's all. Like, he had to get up close and personal for that. He did not laser vision them all. So he's savage.
He's savage. So there's a lot more to come. Season 3 is and there's a spin-off show set up. Did they have a college? They're talking about sort of it sounds like Vought U. Was there any sort of college? Or I meant to ask you, when I report on it, was there a college in the comics that you remember? Because have you heard about this? They're doing a spin-off set in like sort of a Vought college where they bring up the soups.
To my memory, I would say no. I don't remember a college, or if they did it, they didn't really focus on it. I mean, there was a lot more with Vought in the universe. Like, they did have more naturally born soups than they did now. So like how Homelander's son was supposed to be first naturally born, there was others.
Interesting.
Him. So they may have had a college, but I don't remember if they focused on it.
Well, Amazon clearly is banking down on this, and who knows if that'll be a good thing or not. It's unlike Walking Dead. I feel like this is a world I'm okay with them growing. It's a big world. There's a lot of things you could do in it. You could do smaller stories, bigger stories. I love that they were even making movies. The Rise of the Seven, the Dawn of the Seven. They were sort of making fun of the Justice League movies and stuff, and all the soups just sort of annoyed to be there. But making this show makes fun of Hollywood. It makes fun of everything in such a brilliant way that I'm so excited to see where it goes. And I love that it just doesn't care. Like, it doesn't give an F. It'll really put itself out there on a limb and then cut that limb off and to surprise you with it. It's just rare for a show like that in this day and age that can get away with this type of stuff. So I'm super excited that the ratings are there, that people are finally discovering the show, that we're all watching it, getting ingrained. And I liked Amazon's release where they sort of dumped a few and then got us more wanting to wait week to week. This was a show that I think was becoming one of those big water cooler shows that if this was on HBO, if this was back in the day, like, I think people would have tuned in Game of Thrones style every Sunday to watch, I got to see the next The Boys. So I think by season 3, as more and more people are approaching, this will only keep growing in its popularity. So I'm excited. Any final words, Adon, you want to mention about season 2 or beyond?
I hope that they do explore a Mother's Milk a little bit more, because it is a messed up background story that is in the comics. So that'd be fascinating to see how they portray it. And I want to see if they're going to go into that arc about the, not hero-gasm, but like where it leads after that. So I would definitely say, let's all watch season 3 when it comes out, week to week. Get with your buddy, chat it out with them after each week. It gets interesting.
Yeah, I think we'll be doing that here. I mean, you'll have to join. We'll have to do an after show once season 3 starts. Now I think it'll get too great. And I'm gonna get. Don's giving me his comics. It's on my list. I got to start reading the comics so I can get ahead and actually know, because I don't want to wait. Who knows when we're gonna get it? Go support the comics. You can continue the story right now if you're waiting. So go check it out. Go check out Nerd Tots while you're at it as well. Link is down below in my description if you want to go find there and support Adon's channel. Go do that. And as always, you can subscribe here to Popcorn Planet. Thanks for joining us, Adon. Thanks to all of you who watched. We got more content coming to you soon, so stay tuned here on Popcorn Planet.